So, how was the Winchesters Season 1 as a whole? Well, let's start with the biggest elephant in the room. It wasn't a prequel. It was another world. Now, I know multiple universes or multiverses are a big trend in Hollywood right now. At time of making this video, a movie about a multiverse just won several Oscars. Go on YouTube and you can find plenty of discussion videos analyzing the pros and cons of multiverses and stories. I have to be honest. Multiverses are a writing tool like any other. There's nothing innate about them that is good or bad. It's all in the execution. Fundamentally, other universes are just like planets in sci-fi or lost continents in fantasy. They are exotic locations to visit for adventure. The fundamentals of a story do not change. Engaging plots with compelling characters. In this particular instance, the multiverse is not a bad idea for a spin-off. By taking place in another world, this story has enough familiarities to be tied to the original, while still having space to explore new avenues. Because, let's be honest, Henry Winchester in the original show kind of broke canon. Not irrevocably, you could sort of force the retcon to work with enough elbow grease, but it is very clear both within the show and in all the exterior work that Eric Kripke intended for John Winchester to be a muggle, a completely ordinary man who got caught up in things bigger than himself. Now, it's not a bad idea to have a different angle or take on humans dealing with the supernatural in that world structure, creating the differences to be essentially jocks and nerds, and not a bad idea. And it's interesting to have John be a legacy of the quote nerd side. But it's very clearly not the original intent. Thus, going to another world and starting completely over is not a bad idea. Asking, what if we restarted the story with this and some other retcons in place from the start can be very interesting. Having John and Mary from two different sides of that world at the start and coming together, it does have a lot of story potential. But did it work? If you want my opinion on what is the single biggest misstep in the Winchesters, it would be
mystery box, mystery box, mystery box, mystery box, with mystery box, the mystery box, the mystery box, the mystery box, mystery magic box.
Now, I will repeat myself. Again, mystery boxes are another writing tool. There's nothing innately bad with them. It's all in how you use them. And it becomes a problem when using them starts negatively impacting the story. The biggest question of the season is, when should the truth about this all being a different world have been revealed? I think there's a lot of room for a lot of opinion on this, and I look forward to seeing yours in the comments. For me, I think the mid-season finale is where they should have revealed it. See, with this taking place in an alternate world, the writers had a unique chance. Especially given the reveal of Jack's refusing to interfere, we had a place where it was not guaranteed that John and Mary would end up together. As far as we know, there are no Cupids in this world shooting them with love arrows. This is where their effort at a mystery box shot the writers in their own foot. Had they revealed that this was a new world with its own rules earlier, then they could really play up the mystery of the romance. They could have stretched out the love triangles, make us really question whether John and Mary should be together, or was their love always doomed from the start? However, since they had to fool the audience into believing the show was a prequel, this meant the writers also had to act like the romance was a foregone conclusion, and that kills romances. I mean, heck, if you really wanted to ratchet up the tension in the mid-season break, when you reveal that we're playing in another world, threaten to kill off one of the main leads. It would have added some real shock to it, right as the audience was informed that they are not playing by the rules we thought they were. See, once you've revealed that it's all another world, that frees up the writers to do what makes multiverses fun. Explore variations on familiar interactions. The Trickster and Rowena were two fine examples of these. Given this John got into hunting earlier in his life and bonded and had a friendship with Carlos, what would have been his interaction with the young Bobby Singer or Ellen Harville? How would that have been similar and different from what we knew originally? For another example, Ada feels like maybe she was intended to be a young Missouri that they then changed to a new character to try and maintain the mystery box. While her performance was excellent, and the writers did try interesting things with her character over the season, it does make me wonder, what if they had made her that world's Missouri instead? It would have been an interesting space to explore. A great example of this done well is Millie Winchester. The mothership had never given us any sign or reason to think about the woman who had raised John Winchester, but the moment she stepped out on screen, we all knew that, yes, this is the woman who would have raised him. This is what you want to do with an alternate world story. Of everything the Winchesters gave us, Millie sparked the most in my imagination as I could picture her dealing with the young Dean and Sam growing up. You could almost see her passing on her love of cars to Dean, and I'm a bit sad we never got a scene of Dean just sharing a cup of coffee with her, maybe bonding over how awesome his baby is. And Sam clearly gets his nerdiness from Henry. Again, I want to stress, one of the benefits of doing a multiverse type story is a chance to do things with beloved and established characters you don't get the chance to do normally. This is why I say the mystery box formula ultimately hindered the show, because in order to maintain the mystery and the possibility that this was a prequel, they ended up avoiding the unique opportunities this spin-off provided, like quality time with Grandma. Which brings us to the Akrita. One would hope that after several seasons working on the mothership, the showrunners of Winchesters would have at least learned how to avoid the same mistakes later seasons had with their monsters and art. See, there's an old saying, what magic can't do is more interesting than what it can. Basically, if your story world plays by different rules from ours, you better establish those rules early and hold to them. Because deep, deep down at the most basic of levels, drama and tension in a story are created when characters have a need they cannot fulfill. And this goes both ways. Establishing something as frustrating your villains can create a moment just as dramatically tense as having your hero frustrated. It's also the most basic first logic question of every story. Why can't the villain kill the hero right away? The Akritas suffered from this challenge the entire season. If only the magic box vacuum could stop them, why didn't they swarm the Men of Letters bunker en masse and destroy it? Especially with the revelation that Joan was their queen and she knew all about the bunker, and if there was warding or some magic protecting the bunker from the Akrita, then why didn't our heroes bother to utilize those wards, etc., to shield their homes and cars? Why bother taking over human bodies to dig for the queen when the Akrita are apparently indestructible and have no need to eat or sleep? It would be like getting out of a back hole so you could dig for treasure using a spoon. A lot at the beginning with their mystery was good. The coda of every episode being a reveal that the monster of the week was actually connected to the season arc was a spectacular touch until it fizzled out. Several times throughout the series, the writers seemed to be completely mystified by the motivations of their own villains. Mars Nito's whole scheme still makes no sense, nor did Loki's. Looking back now, over the entire season, much of the Akrita's actions make no sense when you consider what we are told about their goals versus what they do to try and accomplish them. Not to mention that Joan Hopkins and her motivations as the queen makes no sense compared to what she claims she wants to do. In fact, let's just talk about the Akrita's origins. The revelation that they were some leftover creation of Chuck's makes no sense. One reason, because it's just a repeat of the Leviathan's origin. And I mean, how did Chuck get around to making anything if he was so busy making all these destructive things? And why did he never use the Akrita to wipe out all the other universes when he was cleaning up in season 15? But then the reveal that Jack has a no interference policy. Well, how is cleaning up the previous guy's messes interfering with things? Shouldn't Jack have cleaned up the Akrita soon after he took over as new god? See, looking back over the season, it seems clear that there wanted to be this theme throughout it of legacy and history. John wanted to find out more about where he came from, while Mary sought to escape where she had come from. The fate and outcome of Maggie hung over the characters most of the season. Thus, the show should have embraced the Akrita as a creation of Joan Hopkins to tie all of these themes together, as her legacy and her history would be the arc the main cast struggled against, and the Akrita would come to represent the negative aspects of history and legacy that our characters are struggling against. You could have even tied it all together even more with some reveal like Maggie was her last descendant or something. Having Joan be the one that created the Akrita would then have Jack's non-interference rule make sense. Local universe created problem, local universe has to solve the problem. But then you can add the complication that the world's men of letters had locked the queen and her monsters away in a manner that made her aware of the wider multiverse. So now she's threatening to not just be a problem where she was made, but to all universes everywhere. Then we can see Jack is stuck in a bit of a paradox, and then maybe he sends Dean on a mission to get everything straightened out before everyone everywhere dies. This also gives the audience extra incentive to be invested in the story, as we would now know that if the Scooby Gang were to fail, then the characters we know and love back home could end up suffering too. Some good things about the show is that, hey, since it's all another universe, any canon headaches can now all be explained away with, hey, it's just different there. So my OCD is pleased, and I should probably readjust some scoring on those episodes which got marked down for egregious canon violations. I was happy to see the angels and demons were kept to a minimum, and most of the season was spent exploring new creatures. Most of the actors were generally solid and did great jobs. Bianca and Ada were standouts as the mother figures of the group. JoJo could be hit or miss depending upon the material he was given, but he was a hit more often than a miss. MVP of the season has to go to Drake, who, for a first acting credit, knocked it out of the park with the best portrayal we've had of John Winchester since Jeffrey Dean Morgan set the bar. I really hope he continues to find quality roles in the future, and part of me wants more Supernatural projects just so we can include that kid. Nida was probably the most disappointing, but I will admit this was largely due to the writing. Latka had the most interesting potential out of all the characters we saw, and yet the writers could never seem to agree with what was going on with her. In every episode, it was like we got a different Latka as the new trivia was revealed about her character and past, which may or may not fit with what we had seen before. Then there was poor Meg Donnelly. Even worse than Latka, the writers of the show could never seem to figure out what to do with Mary through the season. Sometimes it would appear like they wanted to have this big, traumatic narrative arc with her, only to then have the reveal come off as pathetic. Every once in a while, you'd see some acting skills shine through on the screen, and then it would fade. While it felt like the writers all had an idea on who John was and where he wanted to go, no two writers ever seemed to agree on who Mary Campbell was and where she wanted to go. The original series, there are signs that Mary desired to be a homemaker, and given the tidbits that we knew, that would make sense. She had an unstable hunter life growing up in. You could understand and see why Mary would most long to have a steady, fixed location that she could protect and make her own and raise a nice, normal family in, savoring every minute of something she never got in her own life until John and the boys came along to fill it. Again, I come back to, had the show revealed sooner that we were dealing with another world, then they could have better taken the opportunity to explore a Mary Campbell who maybe had different dreams. Yet, even after she and John started dating and he encourages her to go to college, she remains non-committal about a future. While John could have moments like this, Mary seemed unable to ever just stop and be her own person. The mothership made jokes about bro moments in the car, so why couldn't this show figure out that there needed to be more Winchester moments in the van? Carlos and Ada were given a great moment in the van, and they're not even in love. Where would I rank this season compared to any other season from the mothership? Well, it's not as good as Kripke's worst, and even Gamble's are both better. But this was better than anything from Dab's run, so I would put this at least equal to Carver's middling or best season. Compared to the other spinoffs, I would definitely prefer to watch this all again over Bloodlines. I think there is some interesting comparison to be done between this and Wayward Sisters. Both are decent ideas that had some critical stumbles over key story moments, but I would probably still edge it over to the Winchesters. I definitely respect the effort that the Winchesters put in, and I don't regret my time watching it. I hope you can say the same about my reviews, and thanks for joining me on this journey, viewer. Until next time, carry on.